like, what's the dream of? What's the hope in? What's the doubt for? Live to no end. This is living. The life I've been given is a gift. If I'm a living, I'ma live it to death. So what's the dream of? What's the hope in? What's the doubt for? And live to no end. This is living. The life I've been given is a gift. If I'm a living, I'ma live it to death. Yeah.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Living Hope Agency Call. I couldn't be more excited for tonight's topic. It's one of my favorite topics, and it's really talking about longevity in the insurance business. What does it take to make it long-term in this business? Because this business is not for the weak. The weak do not survive here. Unfortunately, you have to become strong. And that's what we're going to talk about here tonight. So I'm excited to dig into a handful of, kind of buzz topics, some things that, we talk about in some other calls, but some things that some people are maybe afraid to talk about, afraid to overview. But before we get into that, one of my favorite books, a book called The Compound Effect. It's by a guy named Darren Hardy. Highly recommend it. Pick it up if you haven't. He has one of my favorite stories, when it comes to the people in your life that are going to try to convince you why this opportunity or another opportunity is not going to be the opportunity for you. And I think it's important because, once you get into this business, there's so many different things to keep you in this business, but just getting started in this business as a brand new person, dealing with the opinions of other people when it comes to commission-based sales, it really can be a lot when you don't, know how to stand on your own 2 feet in this industry yet. So I think it's important to know you don't want those people to steal your dreams. We're going to call them the dream stealers. So I'm not going to go too cheesy with it, but this story comes from The Compound Effect. I'm just going to read it for you guys. And I love kind of the message that it gives. So he said, hey, there's a story about this particular type of crab that's agile and fast enough to get out of any trap in the ocean. Yet those crabs are caught by the thousands every single day, thanks to this particular human trait that they possess. The trap is a wire cage with a hole in the top. There's bait that's placed into the cage, and the cage is lowered into the water. One crab comes along, enters the cage, starts to eat the bait. A second crab comes along, they join him, then a third and a fourth, then the cage is full. Eventually, all the bait is gone. The crabs could easily climb up the sides of the cage and through the hole, but they don't. They stay in the cage. Other crabs still continue to come along, joining them long after the bait is gone. Should one of those crabs realize there's no reason to stay in the trap and they attempt to leave, the other crabs will gang up on it and stop it. They'll repeatedly pull him off the sides of the cage. If the crab persists, the other crabs will tear off his claws to keep him from climbing. If he continues to persist, they will kill him. The crabs, by force of majority, stay together in the cage. The cage is hauled up and lunch is served. The chief difference between these crabs and humans is that crabs live in water and humans live on land. Anyone with a dream, one that might get them out of what they perceive to be a trap, had best beware of the fellow inhabitants of that trap. The humans don't generally use physical force. They have other ways to bring you down, such as innuendos, doubt, ridicule, mockery, sarcasm, scorn, sneering, belittlement, humiliation, taunting, teasing, and dozens of other tactics the crabs around you will use to pull off your claws and kill your dreams. Beware of the crabs around you that are content with staying in the trap. You make them look bad. You're a giant exposing mirror to them. Your actions are being reflected back to them. They know they should be doing what you're doing, but they're afraid. It's easier for them to make fun of you, trying to convince you why what you're doing is dumb in hopes that you'll give up and come back to the trap so they no longer have to feel bad about themselves. Love them anyways, but don't let them drag you back into the pack of mediocrity. So I love that. I think that really it's something that helped me so much in this business because it's not just, you trying to figure out how to, sell insurance to clients. It's you also dealing with the roller coaster of learning how to be a 1099 commission salesperson and dealing with the comments that you get from friends and family as you're going ahead and figuring it out. So if you're going to commit to this industry, really you understand that, sales is a commitment. And not everybody's going to understand it. So if you want to make it long term, you got to learn how to have, that rhino thick skin of what those people in your life are going to say. And when you start to learn this skill set and you get the results, no one can say anything, and everyone will stop saying all of those things when you consistently prove that you're on the leaderboard every week, you're taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, taking care of bills. People will have confidence in you when they see you at the top of the leaderboard. So tonight, making it in the insurance industry, being here long term, we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about getting better. We're going to talk about profitability, sense of urgency, staying plugged in, getting feedback from people, focusing on data and not your feelings, learning how to be resourceful, how to become independent, how to have a good attitude, not have shiny object syndrome, how to really graduate in lead flow and graduate in the types of policies written and graduate to higher premium, because that's what it takes. But at the end of the day, work. I mean, it's a 4-letter word that, you have to understand, you can't avoid. You have to work at this. There's no scenario in which selling insurance, specifically here, is a get-rich-quick scheme. There are plenty of people who have gained some wealth quickly, but there is no such thing as a get-rich-quick scheme without work. If you have this thing in your head where it's like, I'm gonna do the least amount of work and I'm gonna make this crazy amount of money, that's not the scenario here. We do the most amount of work to make the most amount of money. Yes, work smarter, not harder. Understood. We've got some incredible systems and things in place to help you scale, to help you graduate your lead flow, your dial time, how to make it so that you're more efficient with your time, all of those things. I get it. Absolutely. But this idea of, I'm just going to work, and then I'm going to, go sit on the beach. We can create some passive income here, but really our goal is to help people get comfortable creating active income and teaching others how to create active income. So this is going to be, it's going to be work. And if you don't want to work, then it's going to be really hard to make it in the insurance industry. I also saw something the other day. I think I posted it, and it was like something about how if you're in your 20s or 30s and you're chasing, passive income, like that's fine, but you really should be chasing active income. This idea of never working again, retiring in your 20s, retiring in your 30s is crazy. Yeah, it sounds cool, but even if you build passive income, this reality of I'm never going to work again, you're going to still have to work to maintain what you have. You still have to protect it because it can be taken away from you. There are so many different circumstances that can happen. So, I just want to make that super clear, that work is going to be there. And then consistency, obviously you get better the more that you do something. And then there's going to be consistency in your action and consistency in your attitude. So we're going to break this down in a couple of different ways, but let's just talk about getting better. If you're going to be here long-term, whether it's here or selling insurance anywhere, you have to get better. If you're closing 1 out of 10 people and you're closing 1 out of 10 people a year from now, I don't even know if you'll make it a year closing 1 out of 10 people. I don't even think that's possible. And if you are, that's very impressive. And you probably have, a spouse or somebody else that's supporting you, because if you're closing 1 out of 10 people, you're not even breaking even really, if you're buying leads, in the way that you should be. So consistency is going to be everything. And the idea of getting better, that we go from helping 1 out of 10 families to helping 4 out of 10 families, 5 out of 10 families, 6 out of 10 families. I look at, if you do 100 appointments from top to bottom, 100 appointments where you get all the way from, hey, here's who I am, here's why we're sitting down, whether it's over the phone or in person, 100 appointments from top to bottom, where at the end of the call, you get a yes. You've got to present the options. You've showed them a quote. You've given them the value proposition. You've done that 100 times. If you actually do that 100 times, there's no reason why you shouldn't be helping 5 out of 10 families that you sit down with. There really shouldn't be. And there's some people on here who you got to be kind of honest with yourself. It's like, what is the time frame as well in which you've helped in which you sat down or talked to your first 100 families? Did you talk to your first 100 families in your first 6 weeks? Or have you been here a year and a half and you're still barely at that 100 family mark, or it take you 8 months to do 100 families? Because the shorter the learning curve, the quicker you get better. The more consistent you are, the quicker you get better, the quicker that you start to improve your ROI. So it's like if we drag this whole thing out, we spread it out and do the most appointments over the longest period of time. It's like this 100 appointments now is spread out over a year. What is that? That's doing 8 appointments a month, 2 appointments a week if it takes you a year from top to bottom. Or we talk about 20 to 30 appointments a week. That should be done in 4 to 6 weeks. You should be able to get that learning curve under your belt. And if you truly actually get that learning curve under your belt, then obviously at that point, there shouldn't be any reason why you're not helping 5 families a month. Now, why do people sometimes not get to that 100 family mark? There's so many reasons. They don't go ahead and get feedback to get better, and they don't find out what they're getting stuck on. So they get stuck on dial day. They get stuck, whether it's, hey, I got on the phone and nobody's answering. Well, there's a solution to that. Like, did your phone get marked as spam? Yes, no. Okay. All right, perfect. It's not, it's either that or it's not that. Okay. Now, hey, I'm getting people on the phone and I had 40 people answer, but nobody's booking appointments. Well, that means if you have 40 people out of 100 leads answer, like, that's incredible. But if you had 40 people answer and you booked one appointment or no appointments, like, you're really bad on the phones. So let's talk about it. Let's tweak that. If you got 40 people on the phones and you booked 10, 15 appointments, that's really good. But then you start sitting down with the 10, 15 appointments and they're all no-showing you. You suck at tying it down, clearing the schedule, cementing it, whatever it is. You get 10, 15 people on and you're closing 1 out of 10 or 15. Well, we need to figure out how to help you present insurance better because you're not doing a very good job at it. There's always a solution, but sometimes you need somebody to help you kind of zoom out and see what that is. So some people, they don't even make it to their first 100 appointments presented because they get stuck somewhere in there. They're like, no one's answering the phone. This is hard. Well, everyone's no-showing me. This is hard. Well, I can't sell anything. This is hard. But it's like, if we make those little tweaks, we're getting a little bit better every single week. We start to see this business from kind of a zoomed out perspective. Then obviously at that point, you can start to see some improvement incrementally over time. And if you condense the time frames, then you can obviously get better faster. Okay, so number one's gonna be getting better. I'm sure that'll be like the theme of this call, is getting better. Number two is obviously profitability, and that does come with getting better. If you get better and I have 10 appointments and I close 3 out of 10 versus I close 7 out of 10, who's more profitable? The person who got 3 out of 10 or the person who got 7 out of 10? The person who got 7 out of 10. So getting better will also improve your profitability. Getting better will also improve your persistency. What's persistency? Persistency is what percentage of your policies are still on the books 6, 9, 12 months from now. What's your percentage of chargebacks? 20 to 30% industry standard will fall off the books. Now, there are ways to minimize that. Now, I'm not here to tell you that you're going to go out there and you're going to have 98% persistency, because it's just not realistic. You're just not. People get cold feet. People cancel their insurance. It's part of it. 20 to 30% will fall off the books almost no matter what you do. Now, there's been times in my career where I've had 90+% persistency, over 6 and 12 months because of some little things that I did to get better, to help the client make a better decision, to fit it into their budget in a better way to where I knew they could afford it, to make sure that I did a better job explaining myself when it came to the transaction section, losing some sales from some people who were wishy-washy, but getting some sales because that stuck, because I decided to be, very transparent with here's what's going to happen next. There's no twisting anybody's arm into getting insurance. It's like, hey, here's who I am. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how it's going to work. This is when the insurance company is going to pull the money. This is when you're going to have coverage. Not trying to be slick and sly, because slick and sly guys get a bunch of chargebacks. They have big numbers on the board, but sometimes they have 40, 50% chargebacks, and those people go out of business. So learning how to just be better at explaining, here's what's going to happen. Learning at to get better at, helping a client fit something into their budget that they're not going to cancel just because you can sell the $365 a month plan. Learning how to downsell and making the client almost sell you on why they can afford the bigger one, but instead you get them the 220 plan and they keep it on the books for years and you get a renewal. So like learning how to do those things, reducing your chargebacks, improving your persistency, all of those things create profitability. When you get really good at this, you can turn, $200 in leads into thousands of dollars in sales, or you can overspend on leads and you could spend $1,000, $2,000 and, maybe you sell 1 or 2 policies. There are agents on here who they're buying 6-month-old leads and they're incredibly profitable. They're buying $1.50 leads. They dial their butts off. They're literally dialing harder than anybody on this call. They're dialing for 12+ hours a day, but they value profitability so much that they know if they make one sale on a $1.50 lead, their ROI is through the roof, versus someone who buys an $80 lead. Obviously, that's going to be the most expensive lead. I'm much more invested in if I make that sale right there because I want to make my money back, versus if I got a bunch of $1.50 leads, $3 leads, $4 leads, I can become incredibly profitable. But it's learning that skill set to be able to bring out the level of desire in that older lead, learning how to call them back as the manager and get them back on the schedule. Hey, did any of my guys get back with you? No. Okay, man, nobody got back with you. Okay, I'll go ahead and take care of you. Like learning how to flip something that's been dead for 3 or 6 months. That's incredible ROI, incredible persistency. So those are some cool things that, obviously if you commit to mastering, and obviously reach out to some people here who do it, then that's going to help increase your profitability. Also, just becoming a better steward of the money that comes in. So how do you make sure you have more money left over at the end of the month than you spent? Well, you have to just make a conscious decision that you're going to put some money to the side. Make a conscious decision that you're going to actually keep track of what you're doing, what you have coming in versus what you have going out. A lot of people that I see go out of business in this business, it's because they treat their business like they treat their personal finances. And they just go, okay, well, I'm just going to swipe my card and see if it works. I'm just going to see if there's any money left versus like actually opening up your business bank account every morning, taking note of what deposits came in, what expenses went out, following up with the carriers to see commission statements, like knowing when you have money coming in, money going out, managing your business well, putting 20 to 30% of every single dollar into a business savings account for a day when you have a chargeback, for a day when you need leads and you don't have enough money in your checking and you need to save that for something else. But like doing that for a rainy day versus the money comes in, I spend it all. Money comes in, I spend it. It's coming back. I just need to keep making sales. Well, 20 to 30% falls off the books. So just remember that. So when you make 10 grand and you spent 2 on leads and then you have 2 or 3 fall off the books, you really made 5. And then you go spend the 5 and you still have -2. Like, how does that math work? It doesn't. So like becoming a student of the business and a student of the game, that all matters. Like this isn't just I sell to live. Like I'm selling in the beginning here so I can learn how to create a cash flowing asset. I'm trying to create a business. Sean called leads a cash cow. Absolutely. When you learn the skill set, you learn how to make money at will, and then you create a cash flowing business. If I owned a Subway franchise, I buy bread, meat, and cheese. I've got the light bill. I've got to pay my employees. And I know when those expenses are happening every single month. And I know when we have money, like I'm managing a business. So even if you're a solopreneur and you don't have a team, you don't have staff, you're still managing a business. Some people, they go, well, I'm not really managing a business until like I'm a manager and like I have other agents under. No, you have to treat it like you're managing a business right away from day one. That's how you make it long-term in this business. It's not your money. It's the business's money. And if it's a wise financial decision, you can pay yourself some money. But like what happens when you're the owner of a business and it comes to paying your employees versus paying yourself? I can tell you guys this from personal experience. I owned a digital marketing business. It was $1 million plus a year business. I had 4 employees and 4 partners. I worked 90 hours a week. When it was all said and done, there was weeks and months where I couldn't afford to pay myself. But the doors stayed open because I needed to make sure my staff continued to get paid to run the business. Now, in this scenario, you don't have staff right away, but you do have leads. That's your one cost when you first get started. Leads are people to call. So you don't have to go and knock on doors or talk to friends and family, be the person that everyone's avoiding at the holidays because they think you're trying to sell them insurance. Nothing wrong with talking to friends and family, but you will run out of people to talk to, asking for referrals. People will get sick of giving you referrals. But you can always, always, always have another lead. And you learn how to use the money from your business to create a cash flowing asset here. So does that make sense, guys? Okay, perfect. So profitability, becoming a better steward of everything, all of it. That's super important to be in here long term. Another thing, we kind of touched on it already, but just it's a sense of urgency. I think that's a big thing. Like sense of urgency, again, did it take you 8 months to run 100 appointments or did you do it in 6 weeks? Did you get through boot camp in 6 days or have you been going through boot camp for 6 weeks? You know, that's the thing. Contracting, sense of urgency. Did you get contracting done in one sit down of 2 hours? Or did you do one step of contracting and then take a break for 2 days and then come back to contracting and do step 2, then take another break and then come back and do step 3? Like, where's your sense of urgency? Sense of urgency, not just to get the things done, to get started in the business, to get through the training, to get through your exam. Like I wanted to get my license as quick as possible. I wanted to, rip off the Band-Aid per se as quickly as possible, get the hard stuff done first. So rather than torturing myself for 45 days, reading about laws and regulations on insurance and money laundering, I chose to cram it all in 5-6 days and get it done and get my license, because I didn't want to sit there and keep on reading, this boring information. No offense. It's not really that much fun to read a law textbook. Like that's not what I do for entertainment in my free time. So like I don't necessarily want to sit there and learn about insurance laws and regulations in my free time, but I want to get a license so I can help people. So let's get that done as quickly as possible. Training. I want to get this done as quickly as possible so I can get out there and start helping families and get real life experience, because that's where most of the learning comes. But I'm not just going to go out there without doing it. So some people, they have the other side, so much urgency, they just skip all the training and they get out there. And then other people who, well, I don't know enough, so I have to, get it done. And, I got life, or you just get it over with. And then you get to get all of the fun, real life experience. So like having a sense of urgency to learn this stuff as quickly as possible. If you don't start succeeding fast, Sean talked about getting to 20K. If we don't get you to 20K, 20 families a month, like you're probably not going to be here a year from now. Some people somehow survive under that, but like it's really hard to be here unless you're an incredibly profitable 7 family a month producer. That's fine. If you're profitable, I got no problems with you. I don't have any problems with you at all. I just want to make sure you don't have any problems and that you can survive in this business. So 20 families a month, sense of urgency to get there so that you can choose your own schedule, so that you can choose how you want to do this, how you want to build this. But like you don't really have any right to choose how you want to do this until you learn how to do this, until you have confidence in doing this, until you can pay your bills, you can pay your staff, you can pay your leads, you're putting money to the side, you're treating it like a business. That's where you can start to have some choices in this business. You're 1099, you're independent. No one's ever going to tell you what to do, but you got to treat yourself like you're an employee for the first little bit until you really figure this thing out. So sense of urgency is big. And then a couple other things, staying plugged in. Being plugged in this business is going to be one of the most important things that you can do. So we have these calls every Monday evening. We now have Sean's, insurance 101 call that's happening on Thursday evenings. There's something called the campfire effect. The closer you are to the campfire, the warmer you are. The further you are from the campfire, the colder you are. If you get too far away from the campfire, you'll freeze and die. So you need to come next to the campfire every now and then just to keep things feeling good, to keep the training at the top of your mind, to keep you focused. So we've got these calls. We've got our big events. So we just had this string of summer sales conferences. That's another way to get in front of the campfire. And then we have, our national convention, for instance, or our lock-ins. Those are ways that you can just like really get next to the campfire, and it can last you for a while until the next time you get in front of the campfire. So it's like you go to a major event, you go to a convention, I can get motivation from a convention that'll last me 3 months. Then it'll start to fade. And it's like, in order to keep that motivation up, to keep going, I need to be around other people that are doing it. So I either need to get out to another event, need to get around people in an office, I need to join live dials, I need to be on these calls, I need to be around other people who are doing this, because sales is hard. And sometimes it can be very lonely. And when it's lonely, you need to be around other people that are doing what you're doing. You need to be around other people who are doing the hard things that you're trying to do. Does that make sense? Okay, perfect. So you have to stay plugged in. This is a big one. And I feel like this is something that I did a really good job of, is I was always calling my manager for feedback in all scenarios, not just selling. Sometimes I was calling my manager, hey, I just recruited a new agent, and this is the situation we're going through. I didn't do a good job, explaining expectations to them. How would you handle this? And they kind of gave me some ideas and some word tracks on how to coach that person. Or, hey, I just got done in this home and I made the sale. Here's what I did. Or, hey, I didn't make the sale. They kicked me out of the house. They told me no. They told me it was too expensive. What would you have said? What would you have said? What would you have said? What would you have done? How could I have done that better? What's 3 different ways that I can overcome that objection? Always looking for feedback all the time. If someone's calling me looking for feedback, trying to get better, to make a sale, to get better, like I'll answer that phone call all day. I'm excited to answer that phone call because it's like a teachable, coachable person that's ready to go. They want to get better. Like feedback in any situation. Heck yeah, let's go. we're calling to complain, just to say this is hard. No one likes having those phone calls. But if you're like, hey, I want to get better. I'm in the right mindset. I can do this. I just need someone to help me tweak this. Like, what would you have done in this situation? Here's what they said. Here's what I said. That's important, to be able to get feedback and not have too much of an ego to not call somebody. I think what ends up happening is a lot of the time we try to self-diagnose what's happening. So self-diagnose. So you're dialing the phone, you're doing it alone, you're not on live dials, you're doing it in your spare bedroom by yourself, and people are hanging up on you. So you decide, okay, well, here's the reason why they're hanging up on me. That reason might be completely wrong. It might be a completely different reason why they're hanging up on you, but you in your mind, I'm going to self-diagnose. Whereas if you got on with the manager, they'd be able to look at that in 2 seconds, say, actually, it's right there. You paused right there. That's why they're all hanging up. Hey, right there, you actually didn't sound very confident. Like, say that without, taking such a long pause or taking such a breath. Hey, here's how we can change your tone, your pace, etc. Here, let's change up that word track because it doesn't seem very comfortable coming out of your mouth. Here's where you could have asked a question that was more, you already knew the answer to it to take control rather than open-ended question that put the client in control. All these things are super important to get feedback on. And what happens is we try to self-diagnose ourselves. And self-diagnosis, I kind of look at it as if anybody's ever been sick or got hurt. And what do? You go on Google and you type in the symptoms, and then like you get up WebMD. If anyone's ever been on WebMD, it's like the third thing is like every time is you're dying. Every single time it's I bump my elbow and it's like, all right, you're dying every time. So WebMD, don't be the WebMD of trying to diagnose your business. Like doctor-patient relationship. Like I go in to the doctor and like, all right, dude, you have a cold, calm down. Like you're not dying. Like, let's just take this, do this, get some sunlight, take some vitamin D, vitamin C, you're good. And like, you can have that doctor-patient relationship with your manager. They're just going to tell you, they're going to tell you straight up, hey, tweak this, tweak that, you're good. But like when we try to self-diagnose, you're trying to coach yourself on something. Like, I don't have a medical license. So like, I'm not going to try to self-diagnose myself on something medical. But like your manager has maybe helped 20, 30, 40 families in a month consistently for a year, and they can help very easily diagnose where you're at and kind of prescribe a solution. So don't be the WebMD agent. Have that doctor-patient relationship with your manager and just let them just kind of drop the ego at the door and just let them kind of diagnose you. I think that's important. Okay. Couple other things here. Being resourceful. Okay, being resourceful is a big deal and becoming independent. So resourceful. I was in my first home, and I remember I was writing AIG on this nice lady, Mary, and my AIG writing number wasn't working. It was my first home that I was ever in, and I couldn't log in. I had like the agency number rather than my own personal writing number, and I called up Grady, and rather than him telling me what my agent number was, which he could have, he goes, dude, call the carrier, figure it out. You're going to have to figure this out eventually. You got this. Bye. And I was kind of a little mad. I was like, he could have just went into his system and found my writing number and helped me log in. He's like, dude, call the carrier. You got this. You can do this. And he forced me to be independent. He forced me to be resourceful. I remember leaving a home one time and going, hey, we couldn't figure out their Wi-Fi password. He's like, what do you mean you couldn't figure out their Wi-Fi password? He's like, yeah, they didn't know. They didn't have it written down anywhere. He's like, why didn't you go find the router and look at the back of the router and like find what room it's in? Like, he's like, I would have crawled through, 6 boxes of, whatever, over top of the cobwebs and the cat poop to get to the router to find the password if they were ready to buy. He's like, I would have done that. Why didn't you do that? Hey, they couldn't figure out their bank info. Did you ask them if they had mobile banking on their phone and they could log in? Did you ask them if they had a membership card in their wallet? Did you ask them if they had a bank statement laying around? Did you help them look for it? Like whether it was on the phone or in person. He's like, were you like resourceful enough to not give up? Like you had the sale in hand. Hey, I couldn't sign it because there was no signal. Okay, well, different scenario again, different home. I had the person sign it. Then I drove my car 2 miles down the road to submit it, and then turned around, drove it all the way back to have him sign it one more time, and drove my car 2 miles down the road, and then had it submit one more time, and then came back and gave them all their policy documents because that's how bad I wanted to help the family. It's like the attitude of, resourcefulness, getting it done, finding the things. Do you call up your manager and say, hey, where do I find the quote tool? Or do you realize that there's a button on our website that says quote tool, and it has every single quote tool that we have access to and links to all the electronic applications? It's like, are you the type of person that takes personal responsibility for finding those things? Or are you the kind of person that's dependent on someone else to tell you every step of the way? So that's this idea of going from dependent to independent. Dependent on Grady to help me figure out what to do. Dependent on Grady to help me tell me what product to write. Dependent on Grady to tell me where to find this, where to find that, what to do here, what to say there. 100 appointments, you should be independent. Like, if anything, you should have the motivation behind, like, I don't want to be dependent. I want to be independent as soon as possible, because guess what? I got kids. Grady's got kids. Josh has kids. Sean has kids. Like, you might call me and I'm doing bedtime. You might be in a 7 p.m. Eastern time appointment and I'm putting my kids down to bed and I can't answer and I can only text. And there's a scenario there where, like, you go, okay, either I'm going to figure it out or I'm going to be mad at Jamie because he can't help me in this moment. But, like, there's plenty of times when nobody answered my phone call in the home. And I either had to call somebody else who was not my manager and see if they were willing to help. That happened all the time. I called people who were not my upline and got them to help me. Or I did my best and I guessed and I figured it out. And I kind of crossed my fingers and prayed that it would work. And I went back and changed it if I had to. But I wanted to become independent so badly, so I never got into a scenario where I was waiting for somebody to help me, that I could always help an insurance client on my own at any time. I could be writing a policy at 3 a.m. and I'm good. Nobody's going to be telling me, I can't answer the phone. I'm going to take care of it. So being resourceful, becoming independent, and then just, this business it's a long, long road, and you have to have a good attitude. I mean, that's the cheesy stuff, but it's like, I talked about a guy, Jim Rohn, in the beginning of this call, and Jim Rohn, he has this classic quote where he says, it's not about the blowing of the wind, but it's the set of the sail. So it's not the blowing of the wind, it's the set of the sail. The same wind blows on us all. The insurance wind can be a pretty tough wind, but, like, you got to learn, like, chargebacks hit us all. Everybody tells us no. Agents quit. Sometimes debt rolls up. Like, the same wind blows on all of us. You buy from a lead vendor that's not great, and you don't get a good return. The same wind blows on all of us, but it's the set of the sail. I can set the sail. It's the way, not what happens, but it's how I go ahead and react to it. So attitude's everything in this business. Are you the person who's just like, man, I just had 17 appointments and I couldn't close a single one? This sucks. Or are you the person who's so excited because you just went 0 for 17? You're like, man, I just went 0 for 17. The field owes me. Like, the field owes me. That means I'm about to go like 8 for 8. It's coming back around. Like, what is your mindset and your attitude behind it? Because those days happen to everybody. This business comes in streaks and waves. The same wind blows on us all. So it's not the blowing of the wind. It's the set of the sail, that attitude. The attitude is going to be the most important thing when it comes to making it here long term, not just in this business, but in any sales opportunity. So attitude. This is, I got 2 more things. Shiny object syndrome. Okay, shiny object syndrome can be defined in a couple of different ways. Shiny object syndrome could be, you realize that there are literally hundreds, thousands of YouTube videos about selling insurance with Family First Life, and you're on YouTube every single day and you kind of fall for the flavor of the week. Oh, well, this person, they're doing live transfers. Well, this person, they text their leads. This person only runs final expense. This person only runs mortgage and they only text them on Tuesdays. Like, you have the shiny object syndrome of, like, I'm going to try whatever new thing pops up, rather than like committing to something for 30, 60, 90 days and making tweaks along the way. You see any shiny object, you run for it, and you never have enough time for, like, consistency. Well, I'm gonna do in-home, I'm gonna do telesales, in-home, telesales, in-home, telesales. You go back and forth versus just like committing to one and getting really, really good at it. Shiny object syndrome could also be, other opportunities that pop up. Everyone's free to go to any opportunity that they want to do, but at the end of the day, wherever you go, that's where you are. So if you have bad habits, you're going to have bad habits in another opportunity. You want to go sell cars, your bad habits are going to go with you. Sell solar, pest control, bad habits are going to go with you. You want to go back to being a W-2 employee, bad habits are still going to go with you. So no matter where you are, you're going to follow. You're going to be there. So if you don't get better here, you're going to drag those somewhere else. So I don't think there's a better opportunity on the planet than what we have here for what we're trying to do and what we're trying to build. But no matter what it is, you're going to follow yourself there and you will still have bad habits there. So just keep that in mind when it comes to it. And then, okay, this is a big one, like graduation, okay, is what I'm going to call it. So like graduating in your lead flow, graduating in the types of policies that you're writing, and graduating to a higher premium per client. So if you're doing this for a year, 2 years, 3 years, your lead flow will graduate. When you're brand new, you might buy 200 3-month-old leads every week. And you graduate to, I'm buying 60 brand new final expense every week. And maybe you graduate to, I'm buying mortgage protection, or I'm generating my own leads, or I'm doing XYZ and I'm texting them to, pick up the appointments that fell through the cracks. But like, you're not just staying the same. You're figuring out ways to become more efficient with your time. Grady talked about how there's this time money pendulum. In the beginning, you have a lot of time, but not a lot of money. And then you start to get really good at this and you have a little bit of money and a little bit less time. So you learn how to become more efficient, either buying more expensive, higher intent leads, learning how to generate more expensive, higher intent leads that save you time, or using technology to help pick up the pieces and the cracks of some of those ones that you weren't able to pick up. So you're not just dialing the phone, for 12 hours in a row. Maybe you're dialing the phone for 6 hours, but then you have technology that's texting and leaving voicemails for people to help pick up 3, 4, 5, 6 appointments on the back end of people who just don't answer the phone for people who call. So it's like learning how to graduate in your lead flow in the way that you work your leads. I think that's big. Number one. Number two, graduating in the types of policies that you write. So types of policies that you write. So like understanding, what's the best solution for the client. I didn't realize, the types of policies that we have here. And I was just writing real basic, hey, here's a whole life, here's term. And in those situations, 90% of the time it works. But there were some times when I lost a sale because I didn't know what the right policy for the client was. And in that scenario, maybe the right policy was an IUL. Maybe the right policy was, I wasn't going to sell them any insurance at all, but I found an annuity opportunity. So it's like now I'm graduating. I'm learning how to create, not only, maybe a more, retirement-based product, but I'm also learning how to downsell. I'm learning how to add on. They don't buy this, but I can downsell them to this. Hey, they don't buy this, but hey, you got grandchildren? Let's get a couple of grandchildren's whole life going. Hey, you don't want this, but hey, accidental is a no-brainer. Oh, you got all of this and you still have this big budget here. Well, what about this solution too? Because that might make sense for the rest of your budget, how to best use that. So it's like you're graduating in your lead flow, but you're also graduating in the types of policies that you sell and the amount of premium. Talk about profitability again to bring it back to the beginning. My first year, I went through my entire business and I broke down how many clients that I had versus how much premium I brought in a year. And my average annual premium my first year was like $800 something. Pretty decent. Company average is about 1,000, about 1,100. So I was below the company average, and it was about 800 something was my average premium per home. Year number two, my average premium was like 1,800. Then year number three, it's like 2,700, 2,800. So it's like if I help 10 families in a week, the average premium is 2,000 to 3,000. Whereas when I first got started, it was like 800. So it went from 40, $50 a month to my average premium was 200 to 300 a month. Because I graduated to that. I learned how to show bigger numbers. I learned how to find more value. I learned how to figure out what's in their budget. I graduated in my lead flow to find people who had a little bit more budget, but like I graduated. I didn't just stay the same. So to be here long term, you have to move up incrementally. Does that make sense? Also, I have 1,000 clients in my book of business of people that I've helped. Annual reviews. I'm calling people, hey, haven't talked to you in a year or 2 years. Wanted to just check that you're in the best position possible. Realized that 2 years ago I sucked at selling insurance and I realized that I didn't do a good job of maximizing the premium available. So I was able to up their coverage or find an annuity or an IUL opportunity because I went back to those people. And guess what? Those leads, they're free because they're already my clients. I don't have to buy those. To go back, there's some people who I know who sold insurance for 3 years, hit Hall of Fame a couple of times, never bought a lead again for the rest of their career, 2, 3, 4 years later, because they're just reviewing clients from the past and getting referrals. So like, again, like you learn how to graduate your lead flow and you get better and better and better. So like if you want to be here long-term, you build up a book of business that you can review, continue to sell insurance to, set up their beneficiaries with insurance, get referrals. Like there's so many different things that you can do to maximize the profitability here. So this is all good stuff, guys. Let's see here. I got a couple more things in my notes. Okay, this is good. There's something called the law of expectation. Okay. Every day we have a choice as to the attitude that we want to have for the day. And it's your responsibility to choose to be positive, to expect good things to happen. The law of expectation, it teaches us that we typically get out of life what we expect. So we have to expect to help the families. We have to expect our FFL business to grow. We have to expect people to have a positive experience with you when you're on the phone and in the home. And also we have to expect people to be interested in learning how to create an additional income through this opportunity. You have to expect it. So the law of expectation is a really, really powerful thing. And also your focus is a really, really powerful thing. What you focus on will duplicate amongst the people you work with. So if you have a team, especially, if you focus on problems, everyone around you is going to focus on problems. You focus on solutions, everyone's going to focus on solutions. If you only focus on selling insurance, your people will only sell insurance. If you focus on building a team, your people will focus on building a team. So people will do what you do. They'll focus on what you focus on. And then I guess the question is, whether you're talking to your team, you're talking to your spouse, your kids, whatever, the people who are holding you accountable in life, are you talking about what's going well, or are you talking about what's going bad? Are you talking about where you're going in a good way? Or are you talking about the positive things? Are you talking about everyone who said no to you and how hard the day was? Are you talking about people who quit or didn't follow through or said negative things? So you have to pay attention to what you focus on. That's really, really powerful, and share the vision, especially with the people you love, about where you're going. Talk about it, focus on it, become obsessed with it. You have to be a little bit obsessed to be in insurance. If you want to be here for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, you gotta be a little crazy and a little bit obsessed. So being here in the long run, learning to be a good leader, learning to lead yourself. I think that's big. Anyone wants to lead a team, that's cool. The first person you have to lead is yourself. Another good quote from Jim Rohn. He says, a leader of one or a leader of many. If you can't lead one, you can't lead any. Say that again, a leader of one or a leader of many. If you can't lead one, you can't lead any. Who's the first person you have to lead? Yourself. I got so many areas in my life that I'm a horrible leader of myself. But the one that I have figured out is like dialing the phone. I've learned how to lead myself in dialing the phone and selling insurance. All the other areas of my life, I'm still working on. I'm still an imperfect person. But you got to learn how to lead yourself in at least this category in business if you want to stay in business. And once you learn how to lead yourself, other people can have confidence in following you. But you have to learn to lead yourself. If they see somebody who can't follow through, someone who can't even follow the commitments they set for themselves, then they're not going to follow you in this business, and you won't build a big business. So question to kind of leave you guys with is, if everyone on your team did what you did today, or anybody on your future team did what you did today, would your business grow or would it go backwards? Would you follow you? If you'd follow you, why would you follow you? I think that's good to put down. Like, write down some positive reasons why to follow you. And if you wouldn't follow you, why not? What are some things we can work on? So to be here long term, it just comes down to all those things that we talked about. There's probably 100 other things that we could talk about how to be here long term, but consistency, getting better, being a good steward, focusing on profitability, deciding that you're going to be here a year from now and better than you were a year ago. Like, all of those things, they all play into it. So we continue to have these calls. We have them every single Monday night. Next week, we should have a special guest, either a carrier or one of our top managers or producers. And then Thursday, we've got this call with Sean, which is going to really just continue to pound in the fundamentals. That's what this business is about: mastering the basics, mastering the fundamentals. That's what it's about. If you master it, you do it over and over and over and over again, you perfect the repetition, then some amazing results will come. So it's 6 o'clock over here on the East Coast, 3 o'clock on the West Coast, prime time dial time. Lots of people still running appointments, still early on the West Coast. So you guys still got plenty of hours left to dial. If you have questions, please reach out. If you don't have my phone number, I'll put it in the chat here, 248-496-1606. and I'll put it in the chat. Like I said, if you need anything, go ahead, reach out to me. I'd be happy to chat with you, answer any questions for you. But otherwise, we'll be here on live dials. There's going to be some people unmuting. Encourage you to unmute, ask questions, get to know people. It's a great community, great environment to be a part of. So appreciate y'all. I hope everybody has an amazing night, and we will see y'all on live dials. And if I don't see you then, I'll see you Thursday on the Insurance 101 call. Everybody have a great night. Bye, guys.